All right, guys, let's get into it today. Obviously, we're going to be talking about something very important. You saw the title of this podcast or video, which is 12 tips for protecting yourself in marriage. I know that this is becoming an increasing problem. I know that the family court system is stacked against men. In my work over the past 5 years, I've seen, I can't even tell you how many men who have been screwed over by the court systems, who are not able to see their children or be engaged in their children's lives, who have been crippled financially because of divorce, not marriage, but divorce. And I want to talk with you about why I still believe that marriage is important, why marriage is powerful, how it's been powerful in my life. And because of that, I want to share with you 12 strategies for keeping yourself protected in marriage so that you don't become part of the result of the systems in a lot of ways being stacked against men. And in a lot of ways, again, marriage is very powerful. For me, I wholeheartedly believe in the sanctity and power of marriage. I'm a better man because I've committed to one woman and she's committed to me. I'm a better husband, of course, because we are married. I'm a better father. I'm a better business owner. I'm a better man in general because of what she brings to the table and the fact that I've disciplined myself to commit to one woman, and she's made that commitment to me, and we're both better off for it because we've decided to do that. Now, I will say, because a lot of guys say, I don't want to get married because I don't feel like the government needs to be involved in that. Look, I completely understand. So if you want to swap out marriage for another term or just a union or a commitment, great. But what I would advise you to be careful of doing is pretending that you're committed if you're really not, just saying that you don't want to get married, because I'm not saying the marriage is the commitment part. I'm saying that it's easy to fool ourselves into believing that we're committed if we're really not. And that extra step of having a formal marriage ceremony, to me, is something that is just one more layer of and level of commitment. So if you feel like, and you're being truthful with yourself about committing to a woman, but you've decided not to marry because of some of these reasons, I can get that. I can understand that. But just be very, very cautious of saying that you're committed, but not really committing, because that's going to be a problem. We're going to address that today as well. So we're just going to jump right into it. Again, 12 tips for keeping yourself protected in marriage. Now, 6 of these things are going to apply prior to marriage, because this is very, very important that you protect yourself prior to getting married or prior to committing. And then 6 of these things are going to apply towards once you are married, and how important it is to keep and maintain some of these tips and strategies I'm going to share with you. So we'll get into it. Number 1, don't have sex before marriage. All right, let's just get that one out of the way. Do not have sex before marriage. Now, I know a lot of guys are going to say, well, you want to test drive and you want to make sure you're physically compatible. You're compatible. All right, you have the parts, she has the parts, you're compatible. You're going to find out regarding intimacy about this woman prior to having sex. You don't need to have sex with a woman to understand if you're emotionally connected to her and if you can be intimate with her and if you're compatible or not. I don't believe that sex is a great indicator as to whether or not you are compatible, because you can evolve and grow and learn and please each other in different ways above and beyond your level of compatibility. The reason it's important that you don't have sex before marriage, it's interesting that I have to explain this, but the reason is, and I'm going to talk about outside of unwanted pregnancy, unwanted disease, of course, but there's a level of emotional baggage that comes into play when you have sex with women prior to marriage. She's going to be emotionally connected to you, and believe it or not, and regardless of how hard you want to be, you're going to be connected to her in some way. There is a connection when a man and a woman get intimate physically with each other. And what I've seen is, because of unwanted pregnancy, because of this connection, what I've seen is men actually jump into marriage because of these things. And if that's why you're jumping into the marriage, it's the wrong reason to do it. Now, could it work out? Sure. And it has for millions and millions of couples. But why put yourself in that situation? You don't need to. So be very, very cautious of having sex with women prior to marriage. I know that's not a popular thought. I know that's something that goes against modern society, but you know what? It seems to me that Fatherless homes are a very, very real problem. Boys and girls growing up without dad around. It seems to me that there's a lot of unwanted pregnancy. It seems to me there's a lot of baggage, emotional baggage that comes with engaging in sex before you're committed to a woman. So be very, very cautious of doing that. And I know that may make me sound like a prude or out of touch with current times. So be it. I'm fine with that, because I think the benefits of waiting far outweigh the potential cost and risk of having sex with somebody prior to being married to that woman. That's number one. Number two, don't move in with girlfriends prior to marriage. Again, everybody says, or a lot of people say anyways, that they want to test drive. They want to make sure it's okay. They want to make sure look, if you have those types of doubts, then that's probably a pretty good indicator that maybe you shouldn't get married at all, that maybe this isn't the right woman. Now, I know for me specifically, and if I'm just looking at my case, I realize this is anecdotal. I didn't need to test drive a relationship with my wife. Her and I dated for 4 years. We knew each other very, very well. We didn't have sex before marriage, and we were committed. We knew each other outside of, minor things like how she does the dishes or how she organizes her clothes in her dresser. Like, I don't need to know that stuff in order for me to understand that this is a woman that I want to spend the rest of my life with. So I know there's a lot of excuses and a lot of reasons why you'd say, and it's a way to ease into it. Look, you can find out about a woman enough to the point where you decide if this is a woman that you want to spend the rest of your life with without having to move in with her. And part of the problem is when you move in, you add these elements. So you have bank accounts, and you have houses potentially together, and you have stuff that you need to deal with, and you aren't fully committed to that woman. Well, what happens when it doesn't work out? And it may not work out because you haven't fully committed. Well, in that case, you've got a lot of issues to deal with, like moving out of the house and figuring out whose stuff is who, and where do the dogs go, and where do the kids that were born out of wedlock go, and how do we deal with this? So just don't do it. All right. Just stay in your place, have her stay in her place. And it's going to be better. It's just going to be a better situation if you don't move in prior to being fully committed to one woman. Number three, address red flags early. If she shows any sign of red flags or baggage that you aren't interested in dealing with, whether it's emotional baggage or maybe even some level of mental illness. I talk with a lot of guys who are married to women who are bipolar, who have other medical and mental illnesses that they're dealing with. Look, it doesn't make you wrong or a bad person if you aren't interested in dealing with that. That's reality. And you have to be very, very cautious of not addressing these red flags. Another thing I see a lot is there's red flags about a girlfriend or a fiance stepping out, maybe hooking up with other guys, and men will overlook that. They'll overlook the fact that their girlfriend or fiance is potentially stepping out on them because they love this woman, or the sex is good, or they've envisioned their whole life and they've wrapped up their whole identity in who this woman is, and they're not willing to address the red flags. Other red flags, maybe she has some financial spending habits that you need to be aware of. Because look, if she is a reckless spender and you guys do decide to commit and get married, well, you're attaching yourself to that problem. And if you are unwilling to address it, and potentially unwilling to walk away if needs be, because there are deal breakers, then you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt. You're going to be in a bad position, and you're going to tee yourself up for failure. And ultimately, as I'm talking about these tips, again, the first 6 are what you're going to do prior to marriage, and the last second 6 are what you're going to do after you're married. But if you're not addressing those red flags early, then you're setting yourself up. And you want to be very, very cautious of doing that. Number 4 is along the same lines, is don't date insane women. All right. And I know everybody's going to say, well, all women are insane. No, that's not true. We don't understand women. Of course we don't. Why would we? We're not women. And women don't understand men fully. Why? Because they're not men. In fact, we're not even really supposed to understand each other completely. That is the point of a union, a partnership with a woman, is that she brings something to the table that you can't possibly bring to yourself. You bring something to the table that she can't entirely bring to the table herself. And because you come to the table and you agree and you both bring strengths and weaknesses and offset each other, you're better off for it. You're more able to serve yourself, to serve her, to serve others, to grow, to evolve, to learn new ideas and thoughts, to be challenged in ways that you wouldn't be outside of marriage. So it is important. It is important that we have these unions with our wives. That said, you're not going to understand them. But that's not what I'm talking about when I'm saying insanity. I'm talking about mental illness. I'm talking about emotional trauma and baggage that she brings to the table. There's a difference. There's a fine line between a woman being insane and a woman being intriguing. And I know it's enticing to date wild women. I know it's enticing to look for these crazy attributes that they have, this wildness and this adventure and this freedom and this love that women possess. And to a degree, I think it's actually healthy, but taken to the extreme, like a lot of women will, you're only setting yourself up for failure. So be very, very cautious of dating somebody with emotional baggage, with some sort of mental insanity or levels of craziness. It's just not going to work out for you. Maybe fun to date the woman, but definitely not going to be fun to commit and marry this woman. And I realize, guys, maybe the sex is good, which I addressed in point number one. I realize that, she's got a great body, or that you may have fallen in love with her, but none of that makes up for having to deal with this on the back end. If you've decided to commit to this woman, if you decided to invest financially and emotionally and physically with this woman, it's going to create some real problems. So address the red flags was number 3. And then number 4, just don't date insane women. Simple as that. Number 5, communicate on important matters. Now, as you're dating women and you get to know one woman in particular and you feel like this is the one and this is the one that you could spend the rest of your life with, sometimes it's easy to overlook important issues. Important issues like, how many kids do you want to have? Where do you want to live? Do you want to stay at home? Do you want to be in the workforce? How are your spending habits? What are your religious beliefs? These are like things you probably want to talk about. And it's amazing to me how many couples don't talk about this stuff beforehand, and then they end up getting married and they have these huge differences in opinion on the way that, for example, a child should be raised and introduced to religion or spirituality, or they have these financial problems, or the wife wants to go enter the workforce, but the husband thought that their plan all along was for her to stay home and take care of the house and raise the kids. Like, you'd want to know that stuff. And this is part of the red flags. If you're not having these conversations about these important subjects, you're never going to know them. You're going to guess. She's going to be guessing. And then you're going to find out in 2, 5, 10 years. And that's a bad time to find out if there's deal breakers in the midst. And trust me, there are. There are deal breakers. If she doesn't want to have kids, for example, and you've always had a dream to have 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 kids, whatever it is, and she's not interested in having kids, that's a deal breaker. At least it should be, because why should you sacrifice your dreams for her? And you know what? Same goes for her. Why should she sacrifice her dreams for you? There may be some compatibility issues in the way that you were raised, the way that you view the world, the way that you see things, your future goals and ambitions. If she wants to move to Canada or Africa or wherever, and you want to stay in the States, that's going to create some rift. And some of that can be worked through, and some of that can be worked out. But ultimately, if there's fundamental differences between the way you and her see the world, well, find somebody else. Oh, but Ryan, I'm in love with this woman. Great. I understand that. But there's not just one woman out there. You can find another woman that you love. Maybe you love even more, and that you're completely compatible with, and you're on the same page with a lot of things. Now, granted, you don't have to agree on everything. There's trivial matters and issues and deals that you're not going to agree on. My wife and I certainly don't agree on everything, but fundamentally we do. We're moving in the same direction, and we always have been. And because we have that foundation of moving in the same direction together, we're able to get through those differences. So the fundamentals are similar. The way that we get there might differ. And again, that's a good thing. She brings a perspective I don't have, and vice versa. So just make sure you're communicating regularly on these important issues. Understand what deal breakers are. Ask her what her deal breakers are. And it's not comfortable to realize that, you know what, maybe this woman that I adamantly love isn't the best person for me. I mean, that's not a good thought, but I'm telling you, you want to know now as opposed to the next 5 or 10 years. And then the last component that I wanted to share, a tip before marriage, is you might want to consider prenuptial agreements. Again, one of the greatest risks in marriage is financial risks, especially if you're coming to the table with some financial acumen and assets already built up. Maybe you've been in a previous marriage and you've built some wealth and assets. You want to make sure you protect yourself. I understand that, well, with my wife, for example, like we built this business together. We've built our life together. I believe that she is entitled to a portion of what we have created together because we've done it together. But if I'd come to the marriage with something that I had already built that didn't have anything to do with her, you bet your ass I'm going to protect myself and I'm going to protect my finances and I'm going to protect my kids as well, which is why you ought to consider some estate planning documentation as well. Making sure that if you come to the table, and this mostly applies to second marriages or with kids in the picture from a previous marriage or relationship, that your wealth is not passed on to her should you die, but passed on to your children. You want to make sure you think about this stuff, that you have it documented, that it's done legally, that all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, so that if something doesn't work out down the road, you've protected yourself, you've protected your wealth, you've protected your children, potentially from a previous marriage or relationship, and you're just putting yourself in a better situation. I didn't always used to think that this was a good idea, but based on the court systems and based on what I've seen as far as finances and how men seem to get taken advantage of quite often in these court situations and divorces, and I think it's very important that you address this and you deal with this and you at least consider it. So again, those are the 6 that you would consider. Not the only 6. Of course, there's a lot of other considerations, but these are very, very important things. And I feel like if you focus on these things, then you're going to set yourself up for success. Now, it's not always going to work out, but I think you put yourself in a much better situation when you do. Let me recap. Number 1, don't have sex before marriage. There's all sorts of baggage that comes with that. Physical, emotional baggage that just isn't worth dealing with. I know that you want to be intimate. I know that you maybe want to test drive your potential lifelong partner and find out if there's compatibility. I don't buy into that. If you guys are compatible emotionally, you can be compatible physically as well. Number 2, don't move in before marriage. Again, you're entering into this agreement and this contract and business in a way before you even establish terms or define your level of commitment and her level of commitment. And so you run a lot of risk there as well. Number 3, address red flags early. Number 4, don't date insane women. Again, there's a difference between intriguing and insane. Number 5 is communicate on important matters, like actual real important stuff. Know that there's deal breakers, and then if there are, address them accordingly. And then number 6, consider your legal documentation, your estate planning documentation, and potentially prenuptial agreements to protect your interests and wealth prior to marriage as well. All right, so that's the first 6. Now, let's get into the next 6. This is for those of you who are married, and maybe you've done all these things that I already shared. Maybe you haven't done any of them. But if you find yourself in a marriage, then you probably ought to adopt these next 6 principles. And look, if you haven't up to this point, it's a great time to start. And I know that through implementing these 6 strategies I'm going to share with you here momentarily, your marriage is going to be better. You're going to be better. Your marriage is going to be better. You're going to be more successful. She's going to be more successful. Your kids are going to be better off. And it's going to be less likely that you end up in a divorced situation or cheated on or any number of things that could happen. All right, so number 7, again, number 1 after marriage, don't become the perpetual nice guy. All right, it's very easy to become, and you could do this prior to marriage too, but it's very easy to become the perpetual nice guy and become the people pleaser. And so your whole world is revolving around her. And anything that she wants and anything that she needs becomes your objective. And it's the whole, happy wife, happy life thing. I don't buy into that. I think that's a detriment to you as a man. I think it's dangerous, not only to you, but also to her. And I think it sets both you and her up for failure in the marriage. Don't become the perpetual nice guy. Yes, you should be nice, But when I'm saying being the nice guy, I'm talking about the people-pleasing guy at the expense of yourself. I'm talking about the man who gets railroaded, the man who gets taken advantage of, the man who is henpecked by every little thing because he doesn't want to rock the boat. There's ways to be assertive. There's ways to be bold. There's ways to assert yourself that isn't dickheaded. That doesn't make you the a-hole. And it's hard at times, but you've got to learn to be more assertive. The assertiveness workbook is something I recommend quite a bit. No More Mr. Nice Guy is another one. Be Nice is another book. So there's, or maybe it's Don't Be So Nice. I butchered that one. I don't know right offhand. I'll have to check into that one. Anyways, don't become the perpetual nice guy. Number 2, or number 8, however you want to look at this, is do not ditch your friends and your hobbies. I know that when I started dating my wife, the first thing to go was my friends and my hobbies. It's because I wanted to spend time with her. That was the goal. Like, I wanted to be around her as often as I could and as much as I could. And because of that, I forsaked all of my friends and my hobbies and interests and activities. And then I just became this little puppy dog that would follow her around and wander around wherever she went. And, to a woman, I think that's going to be enticing and maybe even flattering to a degree, but only for a little bit. It's only for a little while until you become a nuisance. Like I said, you're that puppy dog, the cute puppy dog that she gets for Christmas, and she's all excited about it. And within a month, she's not excited about it anymore because it gives her too much attention. So maintain your sanity, maintain your well-being, continue to engage in the activities and hobbies and interests that you're interested in. Continue to build your band of brothers. Continue to spend time and have fight nights and go train and do jujitsu and work out and shoot your bow or your guns or paint or go perform in your band. Like, whatever your thing is, continue to do that. And I know it's hard, especially when you're first married. You want to spend your every waking minute with her. But as the adage goes, absence makes the heart grow fonder. So don't be so available. Don't be around all the time, and then go edify and uplift yourself through your hobbies, interests, and friends. Number 9. Again, I said this in the first one. I'm saying it again now. Don't overlook red flags. Guys, if things come up and you think that maybe she's cheating or maybe she's going down that path, or you're having some problems in your marriage about communication, or you think she's got some financial troubles, or maybe there's some medical stuff that she's dealing with or you are, and there's these like little things that come up, the longer you leave these, the more that they're going to fester and well up, and they're going to create problems down the road. I know that as men, we have a tendency of trying to sweep things under the rug and hoping they go away, and very rarely does that work. Most of the time, what ends up happening is we feel a sense of, bitterness and animosity towards individuals when we don't get our needs met, or when there's something happening and we aren't willing to address it because we're scared of what could potentially happen. It only gets worse. And if something's going wrong in the marriage, like, I want to know immediately. Again, it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable to have some of these conversations, but if something's going wrong, I want to know right now. I don't want to know in 3 years. I don't want to know in 10 years, because in that time frame, it's going to get infinitely worse and infinitely harder to deal with. You're going to be more tied up, more wrapped up, maybe more children, more wealth to worry about, more little nuances in the marriage and the financial situation and life in general to have to deal with. So address them early, address them often, and you won't have to deal with these things as they compound and get worse. All right, number 10 is keeping yourself attractive physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. Continue to grow and evolve and expand and get better. At 38 years old, I am in the best shape of my life. I'm the most intelligent that I've ever been. I'm the wealthiest that I've ever been. And I've had my setbacks, and I will continue to have those setbacks, but I'm teeing myself up for success in all ways. And I continue to attempt, as long as I get this right, to make myself more attractive in all ways. Because if I'm more attractive to her and other women, frankly, then she's less likely to go wandering around trying to figure out where else she can get what it is she needs. A lot of the times, women are after men who they feel secure with, protected by, and who will help elevate them and get them to where they want to go. Be that kind of man. And then you won't have to worry about this other guy stepping in, because you are that guy. Like, you're the guy that she's infatuated with. You're the guy that she's dreaming about and thinking about. You are the one getting it done, and she knows that she's with the right individual, you. It's easy. I did this. When I first got married, it's easy to let yourself go. It's easy to put on a few pounds, to really stop pushing and exerting yourself, to coast. And I've done that as I've become more successful too, is to coast and rest on my laurels. Don't do that. Continue to make yourself better every single day. Grow, evolve, expand. And by the way, this is not for her. Don't make it about her. That's point number one when it comes to after being married is don't make her the center of your universe by being that perpetual nice guy. Do this for yourself. Have some self-respect. Care about the way that you look. Care about the way that you feel. Care about the way that you interact and how much information you have and the hobbies and the mastery that you're trying to develop in your life. The more you do that, the more attractive you will be and the better it is for the marriage. And I have another point on this with regards to her, and I'll get to that in a minute. Number 11 is continue to date and court her. And this kind of ties into what I was just talking about, is that it's easy to just think because now you're married and now you're committed that, you know, it's fine. Now she can go do her thing. I can do my thing. Like, I don't have to worry about any of this stuff. And then you get wrapped up with kids and soccer programs and dance recitals, and work is growing and expanding and evolving, and you're pulled away in more directions and more opportunities are presenting themselves. And then what gets pushed on the back burner is her. And so you continue, or you forget to court her, to date her, to woo her, to win her over. And it isn't long before, like I said in the previous point, that she has a desire to go find somebody who is going to give her the attention that she wants and desires and craves and needs. So continue to court her. Make her a priority in your life. Go on dates. Surprise her with little things. Let her know how much you care about her and you love her and you appreciate and respect her. Like, those go such a long way, even if that's just a quick text or a little note, or making the bed, or taking her on a date and going to see a movie. The other night we had to plow snow, and I said, "Hey, hon, I got to go plow the snow in the driveway. Why don't you just come outside with me?" And she came inside, and we sat in the cab of my truck as I pushed the plow around the driveway and got it all done. And yeah, I mean, we were plowing the driveway, but it was her and I together, like we used to do 20 years ago as we drive around in my little pickup truck. And the kids were inside, they were watching a show or playing a game, and her and I just had, 20, 30 minutes of just undivided attention as I was plowing the snow. I mean, it seems insignificant. It seems like it wouldn't matter, but it does. And you start to compound those little actions over and over again, and you keep yourself attractive to her and engaged with her, and you continue to court her and date her. The marriage is doing well, and it will continue to do well as long as you're doing that. And then the last thing that I wanted to share with you is that you need to continue on your self-development course. And again, this ties into everything else I've already said, but continue to grow, continue to push yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and you're doing this to be a shining example to her. And that's the point that I wanted to make on this last point, or this last tip here, is encourage her to go on her own self-development journey. Because look, we don't want women that aren't pushing themselves. And I'm not saying she needs to push herself the same way you do. We've talked about this in the Ask Me Anythings on the podcast before, is guys will make the assumption that just because their wife isn't growing the same way they are, or isn't reading the same books that they are, or isn't interested in business the way they are, that they aren't growing. Well, that's not true. I mean, they all grow. Everybody grows in different ways, right? So some, like my wife, she likes canning, she likes gardening, she likes homemaking, she likes crafts and projects around the house. Well, she invests in that, in herself, and doing those things. And just because she doesn't read the self-help development book that I read doesn't mean that she's not growing. So encourage her when she's doing something that's helping her grow. Be an example of growth and progress. Try to encourage her and push her out into getting new friends and new interests and new hobbies and activities. Because I tell you, if she does that, she's going to be more fulfilled. And if she's more fulfilled, the marriage is going to be better. You're going to be happier. She's going to be happier. The marriage is going to do better. And it's a win-win all the way around. So there's the list, guys. Again, not exhaustive. I know that there's going to be some debate on some of these things as well, and that's fine. Let's have a civil discussion about what you agree with, what you don't. But I think it's valuable we talk about this. Again, I know that sometimes the odds seem stacked against men, especially when it comes to divorce and family court systems and financially. And I understand that, but I still believe that marriage is a powerful union. I believe that society would be better off with nuclear families, husband and wife and children all working together in harmony and working on the same path and towards the same things. I know I have been greatly served by having my wife in my life. I'm happier, I'm more fulfilled, I'm wealthier, I'm in better physical shape, and I'm just a better man all the way around because, not the only reason, but because she is in my life. And I know that if you create a powerful union in marriage with another woman, that it will be powerful for you as well. I just want to make sure it works. And using these 12 tips will help you move in that direction. Let me recap, and then we'll call it a day. Number 1, don't have sex before marriage. Number 2, don't move in with each other before marriage. Number 3, address red flags early. Number 4, don't date insane women. Number 5, communicate on important matters. Number 6, look at prenuptial agreements and your financial documentation like estate planning. Number 7, don't become the perpetual nice guy and let your world revolve around her. Number 8, do not ditch your friends and hobbies. Number 9, don't overlook red flags. Again, I said that again, twice, because it's that important. Number 10, keep yourself attractive physically, emotionally, intellectually, financially. Number 11, continue to court and date her. And then number 12 is continual self-development and then also encouraging her to develop herself as well. That's it, guys. I hope that helps. Please let me know if there's something else you'd add to the list. I know a bunch of guys are probably going to say, well, don't get married at all. Well, if that's the decision that you've made and you don't want to get married, then that's fine. But if you've made the decision to get married or you feel like at some point you will get married, it can work. And if you implement these strategies and others, then you have a better likelihood of that working in it, the marriage working for you and her, which is the ultimate goal. All right, guys, I'll let you get going. I'll be back on Tuesday. I got a great podcast lined up with one of the authors back here from the books in my library. I'm not going to spoil the surprise, but I think you'll like it. Anyways, subscribe. I think we're almost at 100,000 YouTube subscribers. So subscribe by clicking below or head to youtube.com/orderofman. All right, go out there, take action, become the man you are meant to be.